The director of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse recently talked a little bit about the release of the film, the development, and what specifically changed. And then he went on and confirmed that the entire ending and third act was overhauled and changed just 6 weeks prior to the release of the film. And somehow here the internet has reacted with, well, of course, that's what you do to deliver the best possible product. Which doesn't make sense, because that's what they did with Doctor Strange 2, and people are outright outraged and hate the studio for doing the same thing. I think most of you know that if you look at what was supposed to be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and the third act, and how the film just abruptly ends, I think it's pretty evident that there was a lot more, especially if you look at the original filing for the film, which had the film longer than what we ended up getting. And of course include that like Spider-Mech variant and whatever that never makes it in. Well, we now learn that this is all due to the fact that major changes were made in the final 6 weeks. Specifically, the whole Prowler thing, yeah, that was all changed, and that's what ended up making it into the final cut. The original ending, completely different. There was stuff with Donald Glover that ended up changing. There was stuff that ended up changing in how they were setting up the next film. The complete ending, the action sequence, and how they got to where they were. Now, the director doesn't necessarily go in and reveal exactly what the original version was, because that's probably behind NDAs and they don't want to get into that. But from what we know just from leaks that ended up being correct on everything besides the third act, because they clearly changed it, there was a whole different film that clearly set up a different third entry, which I think is pretty evident in the fact that the third entry was supposed to come out relatively close to the second film, but now we don't know when. And it's rumored like it might not hit this year and possibly late next year. So clearly there's an entire overhaul. And like I said, I don't understand why this isn't getting as much flack as, for example, when Sony does it with live action Spider-Man films, or when Marvel did it with Multiverse of Madness, because that went through an entire change in the third act in the final 6 weeks, and everybody was upset. But here it's like, oh, it's okay. No, everybody got overworked. It's the same exact thing. I just think that a lot of people are, again, Marvel bad, you can say it, that's how it is. That's the narrative. If somebody else does it, it seems to be envisioned as, well, they did it for the right call. Honestly, we don't know. Both films could have had better endings, or maybe we got the inferior one. We don't know. But I think it's interesting to point out that Sony does it as well. And whatever this third film was supposed to be, Beyond the Spider-Verse, it's clearly going to be way different now, thanks to these changes.